Your life is not in your hands. Your life is in the hands of God.
Rant3R just resubbed for 24 months. Pastor 7 Rory, Pastor 7 Rory, Pastor 7 Rory.
Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. How are you guys doing? Welcome, welcome. Winter, 2 years. Wow, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Winter. That's amazing. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. Hope you guys are well. I have been reading through this book the last 2 days. He gave us stories. Let's see, something like that. He gave us stories, and it's a big part of my paper that I need to write. So that's what we're working on tonight. Winter, good. How are you? I can't believe it's been 2 years already. I agreed. It's crazy. It's crazy. So we are going to be going through a little portion of this book, but primarily taking the application of its ideas for my paper. It's an informal paper on the topic of hermeneutics and my biases that I bring to the table when I do exegesis. That's what it's all about. I think it'll be a very informative and helpful study. But before we do that, I got to make me some tea. And I've got some green leaves here. They've just been rinsed. Nothing more. Nothing more than just rinsed. So we'll get our first solid cup with them here shortly. And yeah, that's what we're doing. That's what we're focused on tonight. I have a guest speaker this upcoming Sunday. One of our missionaries, Josh Pinnell, is going to be speaking to the congregation. He's going to be preaching. I'm very excited. But that means I don't have a sermon to prep. And so if I don't have a sermon to prep, well, what I'll do is I'll work on a paper. So that's the idea. That's the idea. Let's get this going. What's up, Cal Magic? Good to see you. Yes, hi there. Hi there. Welcome. I hope you're doing well. I apologize that I didn't stream last night. I had to make significant progress in my book. And the facts are, as stream time approached, I was not nearly far enough in order to work on this paper. So I just decided to push the stream a day. I apologize. Hello, Brian. Good to see you. What's up? What is up? What happened to me in TikTok? I stopped posting on TikTok. In fact, I can't get back into my account. I tried to log back in here a while ago, but I can't get back in. So yeah, good to see you, Brian. How are you? I hope you're doing well. But I just don't have the bandwidth to keep posting on TikTok. Really, to keep posting on all the platforms. Something had to give. And so for me, it was TikTok. Cal Magic, I wasn't expecting you last night. It was a holiday for a lot of people. Okay, very good. And yes, it was a holiday. But I was still planning on streaming. But I just wasn't far enough in the book. So when I wasn't far enough, I was like, let me just keep reading and I'll stream the next night. So that's the idea. Cheers, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Got a little green tea here. Little Chinese green tea. Ooh, that's about perfect. I steeped that one about perfect. Fantastic, fantastic. All right, let's get going here. And I want to show you guys what I have to write on for hermeneutics. We've been reading this book, paper number 1, 20% of my grade, called He Gave Us Stories by Richard Pratt, who's a professor that's pretty well known at my seminary. Submit a 7 to 10 page paper with few or no footnotes. That includes, so it's an informal paper, a statement that the student read 100% of the Pratt reading requirement, just finished, a self-conscious evaluation of one or more aspects of the student's interaction with his covenant community, both heritage and present, that has or will have influenced the student's biblical interpretation. This stands for biblical theology, redemptive historical, systematic theology. This influence can be either positive or negative or both. The paper should show knowledge of your covenantal community and categories in Pratt's book and Kara's lectures. Although no research is required, this paper should have a sophisticated understanding of macro hermeneutics and indicate that the student can theologize about himself relevant to his theological community. Paper due at the conclusion of Kara's portion of the lectures, week 6. So that's what I've got to do here. We've got to put something together that's consistent with this. Self-conscious evaluation of one or more aspects of the student's interaction within his covenant community, heritage and present. So I'm going to also bring up my notes from the class because I think my notes will help me to understand a little bit better what we're talking about here. All right, all right. Well, I'm very excited about this opportunity because I think I can really make good progress on this paper, and I just have to get my categories correct. And if I can get my categories correct, then we're going to be good to go. Present covenant community, your personal church, the total church. Okay, so I'm remembering some of this now. The idea is, yeah, my personal church, the general evangelical church. That's our present church situation. The idea is we do not come to the text neutral. Okay, we have our own preconceptions about what is true in the Bible, what we should be paying attention to, what we don't need to pay as much attention to, etc. We bring all of that to the table when it comes to our interpretation of the scriptures. Yeah, so this is perfect right here. The lesson 2, hermeneutical influences, existential and historical. So right here, who I am personally, existentially, and my covenant community, including my heritage or denomination, and my present church situation, including my personal church and the general evangelical church at large today. Okay. So this is already helpful. Am I missing anything from the previous? Here we go, macro hermeneutics. I spelled this wrong. That's not how you spell Gadamer, but I hadn't done the reading before I had listened to this lecture. All readings are a fusion between the two. Yes, you can understand other people, but you can't understand them perfectly. The idea, this is often called the hermeneutic spiral, guys. I don't know if you've heard of the hermeneutic spiral, but the idea is you have a systematic theological lens through which you're viewing the text, but the text should also be informing your systematic theological lens. And the problem is you can't wipe your memory each time you read the Bible and just, come with a preconceived blank slate, tabula rasa, right? Neither would you want to, because you need to build on prior understanding. But that colors or informs how you interpret the text. It colors what you see. It colors what you focus on and how you read it. So my macro hermeneutics is essentially what's going on with me. as an interpreter. Okay. All interpretations are conditioned by their place in history. This is a quote from Thistleton. The radical historical finitude of human beings eventually led on to postmodern views, in which humankind is victim of its social and historical environment. Partially true. A belief that human beings are conditioned by their place in history, however, need not lead to such radical and arguably extreme conclusions. Exactly, and that's the point. Thistleton says this is true, but what are we going to do with it? And a lot of postmoderns said, if this is true, then we can't know what the text means at all. Well, that's an overstatement. Okay, and this is the concept, one of the broad concepts you need to wrestle with when you come to the topic of hermeneutics. At one level, the concept appeals to common sense as useful and true with less pessimistic consequences than relativists and postmodernists claim or imply. And that's what we're trying to do with this paper. They come up with the authority dialogue model. So the text informs your understanding informs how you read the text, but we always do that in submission to the authority that the text has over us. And we have a dialogical relationship between Scripture and the reader, but it's not an equal dialogical relationship. Scripture has authority over myself or my own understanding. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so I've got a better understanding now. I'm remembering from the lectures what macro hermeneutics is all about. And now I'm just going to go to this view real quick, because I'm going to bring up a Word document. I'm always nervous that I'm going to dox myself when I do this. And I'm just going to start the paper. Again, 7 to 10 pages with no or few footnotes that includes a statement that the student read 100% of Pratt reading requirement and a self-conscious evaluation of one or more aspects of the student's interaction within his covenant community, both heritage and present, that has or will have influenced the student's biblical interpretation. This influence can either be positive or negative or both. Knowledge of your covenant community, categories in Pratt's book and Kara's lectures. Although no research is required, sophisticated understanding of macro hermeneutics indicate the student can theologize about himself. Okay, got a good understanding here. And let's see, we'll go 12-point font, double space as per usual. I'm just going to open with I read 100% of the required reading in Richard Pratt's work. He gave us stories. Okay, and I'm just trying to make sure this is all centered without doxing myself. Okay, let's do this. Good, we're locked in. We're locked in. Should be able to swap back and forth now between the paper and Logos. So I can just pop to Logos, I can pop to my paper, good to go. And I don't think this should be terribly difficult. If we go here, we've got, we've got 4 primary sections. Me personally, and he says, you personally in your sanctification, your giftings, and your callings. Okay, so let's get that down. So I'm just going to frame the broad paragraphs first, right? So personally, in sanctification, giftings, and calling. Okay, so that's the first one. Sanctification, giftings, callings. Admit our weaknesses and become minimally good at all areas. Admit your existential advantages and lean in. So I need to put also strengths weaknesses, and how to showcase those. Okay, so that's going to be a paragraph or two, several paragraphs, right? All that. Okay, the next is covenant community. And this is where I think my paper is going to take an interesting turn, because my background is not the same background as my covenant community. I actually heard after I got voted in that somebody went up to somebody else within the congregation before we were voting on whether or not I would take the pastorate. And somebody went up to them and said, "Are you going to vote for Tanner?" And they said yes. And then the response was, "Yeah, but he's not one of us." Right? And so it's an interesting idea, that associating, you know, your denominational background with being in the in-group, right? And there's a concern that if you're going to bring somebody in who's not of the same denominational leanings, that they may not do things the way you would like. And I'm going to be honest, the concerns of the member who said, "Well, he's not one of us," those were valid, because I didn't end up being the stereotypical pastor they were expecting, I think, for better or for worse. So denominational background, both mine and that of my church, there was a big emphasis in this section on creeds and confessions. And at this point, I can talk about our Constitution. Because that's a big deal. And then finally, that'll cover my personal church. Finally, I need to talk about the church as a whole these days. So those are going to be kind of the broad areas we cover, right? Okay. And again, let's go back here. 7 to 10 page paper. Few or no footnotes. Statement that I read all the required reading. A self-conscious evaluation of one or more aspects of the student's interactions within his covenant community, both heritage and present, that has or will have influenced the student's biblical interpretation. I think my position on baptism should be one that I consider. Paper should show knowledge of your covenantal community. Okay, very interesting. Cal Magic says, I wouldn't expect my pastor to be one of us. He is the shepherd and should be viewed and treated accordingly. Yeah, and that's one take, Cal Magic, and it's I think an appropriate take, but there's a little bit of emphasis in one direction or another when it comes to this. Some have that kind of take like you're talking about, and it's the pastor's not anyone's friend necessarily. They're the pastor, they're the shepherd, they're the leader, and they're due a certain amount of reverence and authority, and we should essentially listen to them. Okay, so that's kind of one take. And then another take that I've seen is pastor's no different than any of us. The pastor should be everyone's friend. We're all peers, and they're just the one we decide to put in the pulpit, right? And that's a little more in line with my current church's approach, because it has a bit more of a congregational bent. And then there's a happy medium between those two. You know, it's tough. It's a tough balance always to maintain. Some pastors will lean more in the direction of being separated and apart from the congregation, and other pastors will lean a little bit more in the direction in being an active participant within the congregation. It's difficult, right? Cal Magic, he should be approachable and love his flock, and we should love our pastor and support him. Yeah, and that's a good attitude. Good attitude. And any pastor would be tickled to have that kind of support from their congregation. All right, so I'm going to start with, I read 100% of the required reading in Richard Pratt's work, He Gave Us Stories. Do you underline that? I might as well. Okay. Between this book and the lectures from Dr. Kara, I was encouraged to self-evaluate the macro hermeneutic situation in which I find myself. Allow my self-evaluate to introduce myself. No, I shouldn't do that. The macro hermeneutic situation I currently occupy. Ooh, that sounds good. And I've got 3 broad themes. My personal growth and situation, my denominational background, how I fit into it and how I don't, and then the wider evangelical church as a whole. This was a helpful exercise, as my particular situation offers many unique challenges as the pastor of my congregation. In this short reflection, tell them what you're going to tell them, right? Here's my thesis statement. In this short reflection, I will review my personal, still getting used to this new keyboard. My personal journey in Christianity, my denominational background, in addition to the denominational background of my church, and the larger trajectories of evangelicalism as a whole. That sounds good. All right. Cal Magic. Drenna Heiser took Michael to the hospital a few days ago because he seemed to be slipping away. The ERMD determined Mike only had 4 pints of blood in him. What? 12 to 14 pints is normal. He's had 2 transfusions, 5 pints total, and he's feeling much better. But the doctors are mystified why he is losing blood. Please put him on your prayer list. That's weird. Wow. Crazy Cal Magic. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing. That's tough. I'm glad his wife was paying attention. Holy smokes. Hikari, hello. Lurk. Oh, not here yet. I just need the channel points for Puppy Cam. No problem. No problem. Scoop up all the channel points you can. Thank you for the lurk. And we'll see you whenever you can pop in. Okay, so I've kind of given the broad outline. And now we can kind of dive right in. Now we want to talk about sanctification, giftings and callings, strengths, weaknesses, and showcasing of those things. This is kind of cool, like autobiographical, right? I have been a Christian for over a decade. I was saved in college while pursuing my bachelor's degree in engineering. Hikari says, watching an old show, Colombo, on Amazon Prime with mom. That's awesome, Hikari. I actually, there's a book written by an apologist called Tactics. And his primary approach to apologetics is what he calls the Colombo tactic. And it's just asking a lot of questions. Very funny. I've never actually seen Colombo myself, but I recognize the name from reading the Tactics book. That's pretty cool. Well, I hope you enjoy, Hikari. I hope you enjoy. After I was saved, I developed an insatiable appetite to study the Bible. And I'll talk about my background. I was saved in and from, etc. I'll talk about that later. After I was saved, I developed an insatiable appetite to study the Bible. I did not realize this at the time, but I believe God was revealing to me one of my primary spiritual giftings. I remember in one young adult's study in our church, the pastor led us all in an examination of our spiritual gifts. Hikari, who is the author from the book I Like Colombo Because It's Clean? That's awesome. It's Greg Kokel. I think this is how it's spelled. Greg Kokel. It's close to that. Greg Kokel Tactics. Cal Magic, my mom and I used to watch Colombo when I was in high school. I think Piper talked about the Colombo tactic. Yeah, there you go. Well, then maybe, I don't know if Greg got it from Piper or Piper got it from Greg, but it's Greg Kokel's primary approach to, let me just show you. I was watching the videos on it. I love these Zondervan video series. So this is Kokol. And look at this first. Look at this first approach. Getting you into the driver's seat, learning the Colombo tactic. Right? That's what he talks about. Gregory Kokol sets down the Colombo tactic. Boom. That's what it's all about for him. Apologetic approach. Hikari, LOL, but they all got it from Colombo. That's right. Who knows who copied it from each other, but they got it from Colombo. I sheepishly announced that my spiritual gift was in the area of teaching. This seemed like the obvious response because the pastor and I had been discussing when I would be taking over the young adults group. My pastor quickly corrected me. No. You have the spiritual gift of study. This was extremely impactful on me because he was absolutely correct. I enjoyed studying the scriptures on my own. The teaching merely came later as a result of the expression of the fruits of my labors. Hikari, oh, I bought a flowering tea ball, a little splurge for after Christmas. Maybe one day I'll video it and post it. That's awesome, Hikari. Very cool. I've got a couple of those. I don't have very many. I've got a couple of those. I might have even drank the one or two that I had. Yeah, those are neat. Those are really, really neat. So for those who don't know, they pack the tea together and you place it in the warm water and it opens up as it steeps. Really cool. Yeah, that's really neat, Hikari. Enjoy. Enjoy. That's a nice gift. Even if you gave it to yourself. You remind me, I need to drink my tea. So let's see. I need to talk about my sanctification, my giftings, and my callings. This particular gifting has followed with me even a decade later. I am able to research very quickly and thoroughly with little loss in energy. This is both an advantage and a potential, I don't want to say disadvantage, potential, not red flag, downfall. Downfall's not right grammatically, but I can thesaurus it. No, not quite. I'll just type disadvantage and thesaurus that. There's a word I'm thinking of. I just can't find it in my head. Weakness or shortcoming. This is both an advantage and a potential weakness. I'm just looking for weakness. This is both an advantage and a potential weakness. I am often able to prepare lessons and sermons very quickly that are loaded with all of the insights that I have found. However, if I am not careful, I can tend to overwhelm my audience and preach or teach in a way that does not take into account audience needs. I think that's helpful. Hikari, perfect song selection. Green Tea by Eli Way. That's right, and I'm drinking green. That reminds me, we need to get some more. We need to get some more. Okay, so that's taking into account my giftings and my callings. Now I want to go into callings. That was giftings. What's up, Stannis? Peace be to you. Let's go over here and get some tea. And we have to steep this really fast because it's a very sensitive green tea. Very, very fast. Stannis, what are you writing? I see a lot of I this and I that. Hikari, it's obviously eisegesis. I'll read the prompt to you in a second, Stannis. I'm supposed to write that way for this particular paper. That's funny though. All right, don't want it to go too long. Let's pour. All right, heading back. So here's the prompt, Stannis. It's an informal paper. Listen, submit a 7 to 10 page paper with no or few footnotes. It explicitly says that. It's for a hermeneutics class, and the idea is to examine your own macro hermeneutics. The idea is that you're not neutral. You have a bias, you have a background, etc. And so you're supposed to examine your own biases and background based upon your own personal growth and development, the church in which you find yourself, your context, etc. So a self-conscious evaluation of one or more aspects of the student's interaction within his covenant community, both heritage and present, that has or will have influenced the student's biblical interpretation. This influence can either be positive, negative, or both. The paper should show knowledge of your covenant community and categories in Pratt's book and Kara's lectures, sophisticated understanding of the macro hermeneutics, and indicate the student can theologize about himself relative to his theological community. So that's the prompt. And so it's very fitting to talk a lot about I, because that's what the whole paper is about, you know. It's about me and who I am, what my background is, my development, etc. Cal Magic. Hey, PT, be creative. Start the first paragraph in first person, then shift to third, like the book of Ezekiel. See if the professor catches it. I'm not going to take any chances, Cal Magic. I'm trying to walk in May, all right? I'm trying to graduate here. So it's not the time to be pulling any shenanigans. That's pretty funny, though. That's pretty funny. Hikari. Or should it shift like the book of Daniel? Have a random paragraph written by another person, right? Exactly. You haven't gone food in a while? Honestly, oh, I was going to say me neither, but I gone food yesterday. So, not true. I had a period here where we had family in town, and I wasn't gong fuing basically at all. I feel like gong fu is... You can do it one of two ways, right? It's either a very solo activity, which is how I typically participate in it, or you do the whole tea ceremony thing and you do it with a group of friends in like an evening, which I've only done like once. So it's like one of those, but it doesn't lend itself to, hey, we're just hanging out around the house. You know, in that sense, Western style is much more convenient because you can just make a big pot and people can drink tea whenever they'd like. So yeah, I feel you though. As for calling, I was unsure about a call to the pastorate for some time. I always viewed pastors as relational and charismatic. Pastors are people. Pastors love other people and desperately want to help them in their spiritual journeys. Oh. I'm guessing it's EY, but that's interesting. Cal Magic, or maybe parts are in Aramaic. I don't think PT is much of a risk taker. It depends on the situation, but in this situation, you are correct. I am not trying to take risks. Yeah, I don't know. Depends on the situation, I think. Depends on the situation. I felt like
I don't know why you're clapping. I'm talking about you.
Oh, thanks for the follow. Marthus? Son of Marthus? Hey, good to see you. Welcome. Appreciate the follow. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for hanging out. Just working on one of my papers for one of my classes. Welcome, welcome. I felt like this image of a pastor was well outside of my own abilities. I am not naturally inclined towards people and tend to focus much more on abstract ideas and concepts. I always took a risk to set myself apart from the rest of the class, usually paid off well. I understand that, Cal Magic. I actually... I've only started dabbling with this a little bit more, Cal Magic. I'm going to be honest. In the past, I've typically written papers, for example, from a perspective of what do I think the pastor, what do I think the professor wants to hear? What's the sort of thing that they might be interested in? And that's the rough approach I've taken. But recently, I have written papers that are a little more challenging and full of different ideas, and I do think the professors like it. So I understand that broadly, and I can agree with it in principle. Hikari, I spent a bunch of money on a tablet and accessories, so I can't buy much tea for the moment. I'm just going to drink what I have. I understand that, Hikari. We all have seasons, right? And we all need to kind of pull back at different times. What tablet did you get? I'm curious. If you want to share. If you don't want to share, then no worries. But yeah, we all kind of got to dial it in at times. Jess and I have been talking, not as a New Year's resolution per se, but just dialing back a little bit in general. I'm trying to graduate in May. We did some math on how much it's going to take for me to finish the degree through this year, through May. And, you know, it's going to be well into 5 figures by the time, you know, we're walking in May. So we're trying to pull back in many other areas. So I completely understand that. Completely understand that. School ain't cheap. School ain't cheap. So, yep. We all got to prioritize at times. However, 2 events caused me to reconsider my tentative position. First, as I began to interact with fellow students... Oh, I need to put another sentence in here about higher education. I always felt that my penchant for research would push me in a much more academic direction. Perhaps with the ends of becoming a professor. However, 2 events caused me to reconsider my tentative position. First, as I began to interact with fellow students who were deliberately and purposefully pursuing the academic path, I became strongly aware of my ignorance. How could I compete for one of the precious few professorial positions when my peers had outpaced me so significantly? Secondly, the church that we had been attending had a sudden need for a pastor. we began to consider whether or not God was opening up a door for us to pursue a more traditional pastoral path. Over the last 4 years of serving as lead pastor of our local
I don't know why you're
church.
clapping. I'm talking
Hey,
about
thanks
you.
for the follow. Appreciate that. Appreciate the follow. All right, hold on. A Kindle Fire 8 Plus. It was on sale. That's awesome, Hikari. I love to pick up good sales at Black Friday or, you know, the sale season. I do kind of kick myself, though. Like, come December or January, even February, if I'm trying to purchase something, I always kind of kick myself and I'm like, why didn't I have the foresight to buy this when it was on mega sale, you know? So I always feel kind of bad about that. But yeah, that's awesome. Kindle Fire 8. Yeah, and if you do a lot of Kindle reading, that can be pretty sweet. It's a pretty nice tool. Very neat. Very neat. All right, let's see. Stannis, nice. Now I don't want to share mine. My mom has a Fire 7 I've been borrowing. I like it. Bigger screen to look stuff up. Yeah, I have a small, tiny one. It's actually right here. I have a small, tiny one that I use for bedside reading. And I like it because I can read one-handed, right? I can just hold it like this and just tap the screen to change the page. So I really, really like having that one. But I also can understand the desire to have that little bigger screen because that's really, really nice. Especially if you're going to use it for more than just Kindle, right? So that's sweet. Awesome. Cal Magic, a teacher in junior high wanted a paper on one of the states. So I wrote a paper on Franklin and a state that was organized and had a constitution and a governor, but was absorbed by another state before accepted. That's awesome, Cal Magic. Very cool. Oh, yeah. Something like that, you'd get top marks. That makes perfect sense. Cool, cool. Stannis, I think you can use Nook app on Kindle Fire too, right? If you can, so you can have the best prices for books of both stores. Wow, that's pretty sweet. Mine is still in the mail. Pretty cool, Stannis. The complete works of Charles Spurgeon's volumes 1 to 86, $1 to $2 each. That's incredible, Stannis. Yeah, very neat. Cal Magic, a bigger screen is better for us old people. Hey, I understand. And I'm appreciating that more and more. I know I'm not at old people stage, but I do appreciate the bigger screen more and more. I hear what you're saying. All right, let's see. You guys are funny. Over the last 4 years of serving as lead pastor of our local church, I am pleased to state that I believe God has us right where He
I don't know why
wants
you're
us.
clapping. I'm talking about you.
Hey, thanks for the follow. Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Stannis. Hikari, I've watched some shows on the bigger screen. Ah, got you. Pretty cool. Oh, what am I doing? Here we are. However, in accordance with my particular giftings, I have had to make intentional efforts to be more personable and relational in my ministry. This has been tremendous for my own personal growth and is something that I am continuing to refine. All right, so that's giftings and callings, and I need to move quick. I've already kind of talked about my strengths and weaknesses. So I think I'm going to leave it there. I've got kind of 2 pages of personal background. I mean, I could talk a little bit more, but let me just add a couple more sentences to this paragraph, and I'm going to call that sanctification, giftings, calling, strengths, and weaknesses. Overall, this role has been incredibly sanctifying and will continue to be so. I have found that whatever my natural inclination is towards in study is probably too much for the average listener, while my natural inclination in presence and participation is probably too little. I have instituted weekly calls to various members of the church, members and visitors, to shore up this weakness. Done. Okay, that's done. That's all my personal stuff. 2 pages of personal stuff I think is more than enough, because I still haven't even, I'm just teeing up the denominational aspects and then like the controversy that I got into. All right, let me catch up here. Let's see. I can't speak Spanish. I apologize, but it appears that your message says something like, I am an inspiration to you, and I appreciate that. So thank you. Thank you for the encouragement. Oh, Cal Magic did it for me. I love what you're doing. You are inspiring. Well, thank you so much. Yes, that's very, very nice. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Awesome. Awesome. All right, just trying to catch back up here on chat. Cal Magic, what is a traditional search for a pastor? Denominational process or something like that? They were talking about putting together what they call a pulpit committee. And so for an independent church like ours, they put together a committee of people who actively go out there and try to post that we're searching for a pastor and try to actively look for a pastor and then make an offer to somebody. The process can take years because in the meantime, somebody else is filling the pulpit. Ruination, what's up? Hermeneutics, love it. Just completed that with MBTS last semester. Have New Testament survey coming up. That's great, Ruination. Fantastic. Very, very cool. Yeah, good deal. Stannis, I just noticed it myself. Looks like more free Kindle books, but with monthly fee. Ah, okay. Yeah, so much to read, so little time. Not sponsored. Edgemark, what is up? It's good to see you, my man. Edgemark, I am convinced that nothing can ever separate me from Pastor Tanner's stream. Neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither our fears from today nor our worries about tomorrow. Not even the powers of hell can separate me from Pastor Tanner's stream. Wow, Edgemark. Wow. I'll take it as a compliment, but I mean, you're skirting dangerously close there with certain idolistic tendencies, okay? So I just want to point that out. You're just skirting close, all right? That's awesome. It's good to see you, Edgemark. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for swinging by. Cal Magic took a church 18 months to secure a pastor going that route. Ended up hiring a pastor headhunter. Yeah, there you go. And not only that, your church is in disarray for 18 months. So everybody considered the situation when our pastor had to leave. And the conclusion we came to is that it would be better for me to take the role as the head or the lead pastor instead of going on a search committee itself. And that was also by recommendation from the previous pastor. Previous pastor, you know, these are his words, not mine. He said, if you put together a pulpit committee, you're going to spend months, if not years, and you likely won't find a candidate much better than Tanner anyway. Right? And that's how he put it. So he said, I mean, look, God has essentially brought him here for a different reason because I was here for my secular job, right? And just attending the church as a member and doing a little bit of teaching and preaching on the side. But he said, you're not likely to find a much better candidate if you put together a committee, and it'll take years. So just embrace the fact that it looks like God has sent him here for such a time as this. That's basically what happened. And the church agreed with the sentiments of the previous pastor, and they voted me in. So, and the rest is history. Been doing this 4 years now. It's kind of crazy. Stannis, seems like there's a pastor shortage. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Wouldn't be surprised. Ruination, do you think lead pastor is a biblical model versus plurality of elders? This is a good question. So, my initial inclination when I first took the position was plurality of elders. And that was kind of my training. My seminary holds that position, etc. But then I found out we were congregationally ruled, and I started doing some research on congregational from a biblical perspective, right? Can you defend a congregationally ruled situation? And then I actually went through my ecclesiology class for my seminary, and they argued for plurality of elders. And I'm going to be honest, while I still find that model convincing, I did not find the exegesis behind this is the biblically mandated model to be convincing. I was not compelled by it. And it's funny because I had implicitly held to that position, but the tenacity with which I held that position shrunk as I researched it more. And so I still lean that direction. I would like a plurality of elders, but I think the congregational model functions pretty well. And the lead pastor model functions pretty well also. And so I believe, this is my true conviction about the matter, I believe that the New Testament is not explicitly demanding any one model or another, but instead wants us to take into account our current situation and make the best decision that we can, given the people that we have, given the situation in which we find ourselves, etc. And I believe that that's not a biblically mandated thing, but instead it's left up to the wisdom of the congregation and the people, etc. Now, I hold to that position softly, and I still lean in the direction of plurality of elders. It's hard not to when you read Timothy and Titus. But for me, and this happens often in areas where there's significant debate, for me, often pragmatics wins out. And one of the things I started to look at here is the difficulty of changing the church to elder ruled when I'm a brand new pastor and this church has been instituted with a congregational polity for decades. Oh, you get voted in as the lead pastor and people were already tentative to begin with, and then you start changing the constitution and completely changing the polity of the church. Yeah, no. I'm going to enter into this slowly and read the room and figure out when it's best to maybe make a switch like that. So that's kind of where I'm at. You know, I know some would disagree. I've had some members ask me, why aren't we elder ruled? Isn't that the biblical model? And we've had a lot of conversation about it, but that's kind of where I'm at. I just did not think it was prudent to come into the church, accept the position, and immediately start changing such fundamental things as the leadership structure itself. Didn't seem very wise. All right, let's see. Yeah, it's a really good question, Ruination. It's a really good question. Bad robot, Stannis. Oh, that's after Jess banned him. I see. How dare it share its music. Cal Magic, there's a real shortage of Bible-focused pastors these days. I think many, not all seminaries, have watered down their requirements, so the quality has gone down. Thoughts, PT? Man, I don't know if it's requirements-based, though. I really don't know how to take this. Man, this is tough. This is a tough question, Cal Magic, honestly. I really struggle with this one. It seems obvious to me that the culture itself is moving. See, that's not even 100% true, though. I was going to say is moving further away from the Bible, but movements like Jordan Peterson make me think that that's not necessarily the case. What's up, Jockmer? Good to see you. Totally agree. We have to be wise for those kinds of changes. Well, thank you, Jockmer. Yep. And we're still waiting on that. We're still primary pastor ruled, but I'm open. I'm just trying to proceed with caution. It's hard. So broadly, society seems to be focused on materialism, and that tends to overlap with substantial disregard for the Bible, new atheism, and also agnostic approaches. So you see that, generally speaking. I'm going to skip this. This is weird. But here's the thing. This is not everywhere. And I actually, since the Jordan Peterson phenomenon, I am on record saying that new atheism is dead. Move aside. Now, we may be on the cutting or bleeding edge of this movement, this shift. But I think there's a newfound appreciation for the Bible arising. Now, what kind of appreciation is that? I don't think it's going to be our stereotypical Protestant approach that focuses on literal hermeneutics. I think that's gone. I think that's gonna continue to go by the wayside. But I'm okay with that because you guys have seen I love typology and I love allegory and I love returning to some of those hermeneutical approaches. Now, many evangelicals are terrified of this, and rightfully so. There's been a lot of abuse of typological and allegorical approaches in the past. So we proceed with caution, but I don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I think this is the path the Spirit is leading us down these days. So it's hard because on the one hand, I think there's, at least on the surface of things, there's less regard for the Bible in general. And there's less regard across the board, as far as I'm concerned, for at least a literal hermeneutic. Okay? But I do not necessarily equate that for less regard for the Bible in certain particular circles. I see a lot of positive developments there. And I don't necessarily equate that with less regard for the Bible in our institutions. The problem is it takes so much wisdom and discernment to navigate our day and age. That's the big problem. It takes so much wisdom and discernment. And if you don't have the wisdom and you don't have the discernment, then you better have a good, solid, fundamentalistic structure. And if you don't have that, you're a wave. You're on a boat tossed to and fro among the waves. That's it. That's all there is to it. And that's hard. That's hard. Things are being shaken up quite a bit right now because of the information explosion that the internet provides. It's not clear what the results of it are going to be. That's the best I can do, Cal Magic. What do you think? What do you think? Hikari, new leader, let's change everything. Exactly. So I backed off on that. Cal Magic, I read that many have removed the Hebrew and Greek requirements. Wow. I thought MDiv, the distinctive at RTS is that the MDiv is Hebrew and Greek required. That's the distinctive at RTS. That's what they do. If you want to get a Master's of Divinity, a preacher's pastor's degree, you have to do the languages. That's interesting, but you're saying some of them moved them to electives. Edgemark, Pastor Chandler, I forget, when did you get the role at the church? Roughly 4 years ago. Roughly. Okay. It's on paper, it's been a little bit shorter than that because I didn't formally get the position until like February or March. But in practice, it's been a little bit longer than that because I was the functional pastor since like November of the previous year. So that's why I say roughly 4 years. What up, Jess? Good to see you. Jess, think it's education as a whole, secular universities included. That's interesting. Yeah, and in that sense, I think there's much less emphasis on academics. You know, there's a much greater embrace for postmodern approaches, and that naturally leads to a reduction in focus on rationalism and academics themselves. And so what that turns into is, because human beings struggle to hold these things in tension, what that often turns into is a pendulum swing towards feelings and emotions. And I think that's generally observable as well in society as a whole. So yeah, I believe that. Cal Magic, I've been slowly teaching my Bible study group more and more about typology and overarching themes. They have loved it and really embraced it. My church too. My church absolutely loves my typology sermons. Took about 6 to 7 months. I'm still moving in that direction, but very slowly. That's wise. That's wise, Cal Magic. What's up, Tin Man? Good to see you. Been a minute. Ruination. Same MDiv distinctives at Midwestern. That's why I'm doing the MTS. There you go. Yep. So, yeah, interesting. Interesting developments. Good question. These are the days we're navigating. It's going to take wisdom as we move forward. Okay, so I've talked a lot about myself here. Let's now move on to the denominational background. Denominational backgrounds have impacted my ministry in even greater ways than my personal gifts or callings. It is within this context that I would like to spend the most time, because of the outsized challenges that it has posed. I was personally saved in a Calvary Chapel style of church. This church had a heavy premillennial and dispensational emphasis that was focused on prophecy and the book of Revelation. Interestingly, however, I found Reformed resources through various online bookstores and sermons. So while I was being fed a steady diet of dispensational theology from the pulpit, I was consuming Reformed theology in private. Jesse, Pastor Chandler made teriyaki noodle bowls for dinner. Ooh, that sounds good. Yummy. The toddler ate it. Yes. Tiny victories up here, saving you some. Keep crushing it. I will. Thank you. Thank you. Much love. Appreciate you very much. What's up, Deep Dive? Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. How are you? Hope you're having a good evening. Tin Man, yeah, I sadly started a second shift position for a while on lunch now. Ah, got you. Oh man, well, I hope it's not for long term. I hope you're able to get out of that soon. Different shifts and stuff like that can really be a bother. In the end, the Calvary Chapel distinctive of focusing so much on the Bible alone led to its downfall in my consciousness. As my own reading of the scriptures did not yield the eschatology and theology that I was receiving. Edgemark. Oh, I got you. Very good. Let's see. Deep dive. Doing well. Bought my first tea today. Yes! Figured I'd see what the hype is. Believe I got an 8 Immortals Oolong. How do you like it? Oolong tea is good. Very, very good. Oolong tea is Jess's favorite tea. How do you like it, Deep Dive? Deep Dive reminded me, we need more tea. We need more tea. Stannis, if you read one sermon a day, it would take almost 10 years to read all of Spurgeon's sermons, not including his other works. Yeah, it's crazy, Stannis. And I love reading Spurgeon. He's so fun to read. So fun to read. He was a great preacher. Great preacher. Deep dive actually wasn't bad. Maybe steeped a little long, but wasn't bad. Was it bitter? Did you have any bitterness in it? The temperature is also important. Now, oolongs are pretty resilient. So typically in oolong, you can take all the way up to boiling. Usually you stop at like 190, 195. But, and you know, boiling is reserved for blacks. But, you know, oolongs can take quite a bit of heat. So it's usually not too bad, but there's variables there. There's some oolongs that I steep at a little lower temp or for less time. So if it's a stereotypical oolong deep dive, I'd probably steep it at 195 for like 5 to 6 minutes. But I like my tea strong and I like the bitterness. So, you know, I don't know if that helps you orient yourself. I'm curious what you did it at. All right, we'll see you, Tin Man. Have a good shift, okay? God bless you. Take care. Cal Magic, I love Tozer and Martin Lloyd-Jones. All are fantastic. Really, really good. Stannis, if the Nook app works on Fire, may add a sermon a day to my daily reading. That'd be cool, Stannis. Very nice. Yeah, it's true, Stannis. It's cheaper, but maybe not as convenient. You might decide that it's worth a couple bucks just for the convenience. Deep dive on the edge of bitter. I went up to boiling, so thanks for the temp tip. Yeah, I would probably drop it down to 195 and still go 5 to 6 minutes if it's a typical oolong. So, and you could even go down to 190 and not lose much flavor. So try that, and if it's still too bitter, then drop the time. Do like 195 or 190 for like 4 minutes. That's awesome. Deep dive. Very cool. Well, I hope you're enjoying it. I wasn't always a tea nut, but it's really grown on me in the past few years, and now I love it. Speaking of which, this is a green. It's very sensitive green. So I've been doing it at 175 for like 30 seconds. Oh yeah. But I'm doing Gong Fu style, which is also a little bit different way of preparing tea. What's up, Rizzy? Good to see you. It's been a minute. Pastor Tanner is a tea nut as opposed to a peanut. I'll take it. Rizzy, I always learn so much here. Thank you all. Hi, Pastor Tanner. Hey, how you doing, Rizzy? Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. Hope you're doing well. Cal Magic, that was weird. Your video and voice were way out of sync. Refresh the page. It's all fixed. Yeah. And sometimes it's on my end. Sometimes it's not. I never know what those sorts of things are doing. I really don't. Yep. All right. Let's go ahead and pour this. Very sensitive green, so I just want to be cautious with it. Alrighty. Just trying to get this all poured. Stannis says, what is your background lighting? Looking for another light in my room. Are you talking about the RGB, Stannis? Let me just look real quick. I don't know what I'm talking about. My background. Okay, well, I have 4 lights. I'll tell you that, okay? I have 4 lights. My key light, which is the one that shines directly on my face right here, is here. Let me look them up. Let me look them up. It's an aperture. Let me see. It's an aperture light. And I forget which exact one it is. I can find something like it. It's pretty well known. Yeah, I'm struggling to find the exact one I have. But my key light right here is it's an aperture light, but I've got it turned down. It's at 27% right now, luminescence. And you can see it's plenty bright. But that's also because my camera is really fast, and it's kind of got a low light lens on it. So that makes a big difference. But yeah, this is an aperture light. Ooh. Yes, it's the Aperture 120D. I'm pretty sure that's what I've got. Yep. So my key light is my Aperture 120D. That's not spelled correctly, but you'll be able to find it from that. So that's this one, okay? And that's what lights everything for the most part.
This is the biggest room of freaked out snowflakes you've ever seen in your life.
Cal Magic Guy cheered. X2000. Buy Jessie some chocolates or something to thank her for the dinner she fixed for you.
That's right. Indeed. Jess likes good chocolate. So that's a hot tip, Cal Magic. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. 2,000 bits from Cal Magic. Much love to you. Much love to you. I appreciate that. So my key light's an Aperture 120D. I also have a light over here that I actually use to highlight the Elmo and just kind of give a little background. It doesn't hit me from here. This Aperture 120D with the softbox that I have on it gives great lighting all by itself. So I don't really use another light on me, although a little bit cascades. This is mostly for the tabletop and for utilizing the Elmo. And that's this is just a cheap LED thing I got off of eBay. And I just put it up on a really high stand. So that's almost up to the ceiling, and it's shining down on the Elmo area, right? So that's why you're getting a little bit of reflection right here, is because I have a light up there. Now, oftentimes, if you don't have something like the Aperture 120D with a softbox on it, oftentimes you can do like a second light on your face over here so that you can get a little bit of depth. But this light's fantastic. And then back here, I have two RGB lights that point at the wall. Try not to shine them at the camera. And these are Pocket Light F7s. Okay, Pocket Light F7s. And these I just prop up to shine at the wall. I have two Pocket Light F7s shining at the wall, and I just put them on. I think it's scene 6, which is just the slow, the slow glow of the RGB changing. And so that's basically our thing. I would love at some point right here to get the PT logo. Imagine if we had the PT logo right here on the wall. I think that'd be perfect. So I'd like to get that at some point, but that's about it. That's the setup. So Aperture 120D, cheap LED light, set to the same color temperature, shining down here, and then two RGB lights, the Pocket Light F7s. I hope that helps, Stannis. Good question. Good question. All right. Rizzy Cat, what is the title of your paper? I don't have a title yet. The assignment is to submit a 7 to 10 page paper, which is a self-conscious evaluation of one or more aspects of my interaction with my Covenant community, both my heritage and my present Covenant community, that has or will have influenced the student's biblical interpretation, biblical theology, Reformed not Reformed. This is redemptive historical or systematic theology. This influence can either be positive, negative, or both. Paper should show knowledge of your covenantal community and categories in Pratt's book. So the case study I'm going to utilize, I'm giving my background right now, but at the end of the day, the focus I'm going to give is going to be on the topic of baptism, because my particular background makes me a little bit more open on the topic of baptism, while my church is not as open on the topic of baptism, and we've had some struggles with that topic. So that's kind of the direction I'm going with it. Great idea, simplicity. Yeah, trying to keep it simple. Stannis says, okay, the 120D is currently unavailable on Amazon. Maybe they've upgraded it, Stannis? Maybe it's actually updated to a newer model. That's what I would expect. Yeah, I see the exact one you're pointing out here. So it might be upgraded or updated. Don't know. Cool. Awesome, Stannis. All right. This caused me to be much more open to moving into a more reformed church. When a job opportunity presented itself, we searched actively for reformed churches in the area, and upon finding a good Reformed Baptist church, we were happy to move on. Attending this Reformed Baptist church caused us to grow in many ways. And this is also when I began attending RTS. What up, Yeptar? Yeptar says, if you like the Aperture lights, they have a budget line called Amaron that's almost as good for much less dollars. Well, hey, there you go, Stannis. Yeptar's giving you a hot tip. Good to see you, Yeptar. How are you? Welcome, welcome. My reformed approach to the scriptures solidified during this period, and when God opened the opportunity to take yet another job, we took it. This third church that we began attending was also Baptist, but not explicitly Reformed. I ignorantly thought that it would be quite similar to the Reformed Baptist Church that we had attended previously. And this Yep, Tar, doing good, lurking as usual. Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Edgemark, Pastor Tanner balling with all the camera gear. Boy, doesn't mess around. Well, we've been doing this for, what, 3 years now? Close to it. And so we've slowly upgraded over time. That's true. I mean, we started with just the webcam and not much. But we've slowly upgraded over time, and now we do. Yeah, we have pretty good gear at this point. And I think it shows. The quality of the videos, I think, is up there with some of the best videos on YouTube, at least just for what I do. I know I just do talking head videos, right? We're not shooting great drone shots or things like that, but, you know, that's not our content. So for what we have going, I think our quality is up there, and we've slowly gotten there over time. It's been cool. Very cool, very cool. All right. This third church we began attending was also Baptist, but not explicitly Reformed. I ignorantly thought that it would be quite similar to the Reformed Baptist church that we had attended previously, and this was not the case. We were in for a theological controversy shortly after I became lead pastor of this church. The background of First Baptist Church of Leadville was decidedly fundamentalistic and independent. While it took some time to wrap my brain around Cal Magic, PT's gear is giving his channel a studio quality presentation, sets him apart from the fray. Thanks, Cal Magic. That's awesome. Stannis, you're a goof. Well, it took some time to wrap my brain around congregational ecclesiology. I was not prepared for the challenges surrounding church membership. The constitution of the church was, and still is, explicitly premillennial and dispensational. Many of the stances are fundamentalistic as well. I'm going to remove that sentence. That's not a helpful sentence. And then I'm going to move this one up. This goes better here. My predecessor had not emphasized church membership as delineated by the Constitution. And so I sought to focus on this area very early on. The issue arose regarding baptism and membership within the church. Would we accept infant baptism as a an appropriate baptism for the purposes of church membership? Let's see. Rizzy, would be great to see a Venn diagram of different churches' similarities and differences per many grouped pairs of theological practices that might be contrasting in nature. That would actually be really cool, Rizzy. I think I understand what you're talking about here. And I think that'd be neat and helpful. Oh, man. Denominations and denominational differences can be so hard for people to wrap their brains around. It's because there's so much out there. Are you even effective, bro? Oh, wait. Cal Magic, have you noticed a difference in church membership / growth with your changes? Might be helpful to cite your observations in analyzing the church and your teachings. Very good point, Cal Magic. I'm going to put that as a separate paragraph. What have been the results of the membership and baptism adjustments? Perfect. Thank you, Cal Magic. Yeah, I think that'll be helpful. Would we accept infant baptism as an appropriate baptism for the purposes of church membership? My entire ecclesiological, no. Well, that might be the right word, actually. Background made this decision obvious to myself. We, as one of the only Bible teaching churches in town, would not require believers' baptism for the purposes of church membership. While we would winsomely discuss baptism with members who had been baptized as infants, we did not want them to feel obligated to get re-baptized against their consciences just so that they could become members of our church. My time with RTS and Reformed theology no doubt caused this position to... My time with RTS and Reformed theology no doubt caused this position... no doubt contributed towards my holding of this position. However, I was largely ignorant of the more fundamentalistic Baptist position on this very topic. Cal Magic, denominational Venn diagram would have about 1,750 circles. I think you would pick like a specific topic and you would compare and contrast. You'd have many Venn diagrams. I think that's the way I understood it. Cal Magic. That's funny though. That's funny. Stannis, I'd rather read all of Spurgeon's works, Pastor Tanner, what are your thoughts on John Wesley? So, and you know what? I'm going to stop here. So I'm going to just answer question. I gotta close here. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Rizzy. Multiple pairs. So my thoughts on John Wesley. I really like John Wesley, actually. And I know, he's Arminian and him and Whitefield had problems, but I actually know more about Wesley from reading about Whitefield because they were good. They were good friends and influences on one another. And what I appreciate so much about Wesley, John and Charles both, is their emphasis on practical Christian living, on righteousness, on holiness, on it's important for us to live out our Christian faith. I appreciate that so much. And so I'm actually, largely speaking, a decent fan of Wesley. Now, I'm not Methodist, and I'm not Methodist on purpose, but I consider at least the Wesleyan version of Christianity and Methodism to be very, very close to my own position. I probably would not have said this in the past. I was much more passionate about Reformed theology and critiquing Arminianism. I just don't care about that very much anymore. There are plenty of people talking about that. It's just not an area I want to engage in. And so I like John Wesley quite a bit. He definitely went into some excesses. They definitely tend towards mysticism, but at times I feel like that's a feature, not a bug. And so, yeah, there's some real good stuff about Wesley, but I do disagree with him on several important theological points. I just don't think those are primary, I guess, at least for me. Stannis, so Wesley is tasting the strawberry rather than just talking about what the strawberry tastes like. That's a good way to put it, Stannis. Yeah, and I agree. He and his brother really tried to practically live this stuff out. And that's part of what contributed to Whitefield's salvation, and then Whitefield's heavy emphasis on the new birth. And all of those are important evangelical developments for me. If there's any aspect of evangelicalism that I care about the most, it's not sola scriptura, it's not justification by faith alone, as much as I love both of those doctrines. It is the emphasis on the new birth. That's so important to me. And Wesley is very inclined towards that. And so I can appreciate Wesley very much when it comes to those things. The emphasis on the new birth, that we must be born again, that we can't even see the kingdom of God unless God takes out our heart of stone and gives us a heart of flesh. That's an important area of emphasis in my ministry. I probably talk about that once a month at least, if not more often. Might enter into every other sermon. And I mean, Whitefield doesn't preach that without Wesley. There you go. Right? So God used him mightily in that way, and it's one of the most important Protestant emphases, I think, out there, is the emphasis on the new birth. All right, guys, I had a lot of fun tonight. This was really cool. I'm making progress. What are we, 4 pages of our... Yeah, we're on 4 pages of our 7-page paper. I'll probably end up getting closer to 8 or 9, but that's fine. It's 7 to 10. I like informal papers like this. You don't have to do as much research and study, and especially kind of gives you time to reflect on yourself and where your own biases are. So I enjoyed that a lot. Cal Magic, you need to make a video on 10 books a Christian should read to understand the Bible well. Let me add that to my video list right now. Let's see. Video. Man, I have not been doing good on getting videos out. I have plenty of good video ideas. I just haven't been getting them out there. I need to get them out there. 10 must read books to understand the Bible. Nice. Cool. All right, guys, you guys are awesome. Shay, yes, you missed. I'm closing. I'm sorry. It's good to see you, Shay, but I am closing. I got to jump off. I appreciate you, brother. I'm sorry you missed it. Hey, you can watch the VOD on 2 times speed. That halves the time that you have to spend listening to me blabber on. Oh, you had a good question. Yeah, if it's going to take any significant amount of time, go ahead and ask it, Shay. But if it's going to take any significant amount of time for me to answer, I kind of don't have time. I got to jump off. I got a couple more things to do. Family devotional was supposed to start 10 minutes ago. So I got to get going on that, plus bath time. I haven't had any dinner yet. So yeah, it's winding down. Thanks for all you do. Thank you so much, Rizzy. You're an encouragement. I appreciate you very much. Yeah, I love doing this, guys. And I've said it many times before. I'm in it for the long haul. Lord willing, that my plans are to keep going on this for many years to come, right? I think this is the way of the future for, interacting, spreading the gospel, all that type of good stuff. And so we're going to keep leaning in. There's more chances. There's more opportunities. Lord willing, I'm not going anywhere. And yeah, I appreciate you guys so much. Thanks for letting me distract you this evening. No, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, Stannis. All right, let's see. Shay says, I was just wondering, as a reform guy, what commentaries you'd recommend from the opposite view? No need to answer family first. There will be future streams. Yeah, I need to consider that one. I need to consider that one a little bit more, Shay. Yeah, give me time to sit on that one. Pop in another time, and I can give maybe some recommendations. All right, you guys are amazing. Appreciate you all very much. This was a fun stream. Probably won't stream again this week. Maybe get a YouTube video out. I doubt it. It's gonna be a struggle. But we're getting into the new year and lots of developments. You guys know my big focus right now is pushing for graduation. I'm trying to graduate in May. I'm trying to walk. And but appreciate all your guys' encouragement. It helps a lot. And yeah, we'll see you guys again real soon, okay? So take care. God bless. Bye. That's the wrong one. We're not going to this. That's the wrong one. Take care. God bless. Bye again.